Present. Okay, I'll start over again there. Good afternoon, everyone. Our chair, presiding Judge Ashby, is not with us today, so he asked if I would chair this afternoon's meeting, which I'm pleased to do. Welcome, everyone. Looks like a lot of people are joining us right now, which is terrific. Give everybody a moment here to get fully logged in as everyone's joining us. Great. Looks like we have a great group here this afternoon. Again, Judge Ashby's not with us this afternoon, so I'll chair the meeting. I do know one of our big topics, ballot measure 110 reform. We'll certainly miss our district attorney, Steve Gunnels, who's not with us this afternoon. I met with him this morning, and he's traveling this afternoon, so he's not with us for that one either. But in any event, it's 3:31, so let's get started. So I'll officially call the meeting to order. Again, great to see everybody this afternoon. We are going to start with our November minutes, and as our chair often does, we'll see if there are any objections to those minutes. Otherwise, we will assume that they are approved. But let me just take a moment and see if you've had a chance to review those, and if anybody has any revisions or changes to them before we have them approved. These are our November minutes, by the way. We did not meet. We haven't met since, well, we have met, but we don't have other minutes since November at this point. Okay. Seeing none, we will consider our November minutes approved. So thank you. We'll move into public comment. Do we have anybody that is from the public that would like to make a comment? I'll look for raised hands. And I expect Angie will let me know if there's anybody here that would like to provide comments under public comments. I'm not seeing any, not that we can come back if I've missed anybody, but if not, that's okay. We're just moving right along. We're on agenda item 4, our Justice Reinvestment Semi-Annual Report. This is attachment 2 in your packet, and I do know Trevor is here. So welcome, Trevor. Always great to have you with us. And let me turn it over to you to present the semi-annual report.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. And Angie, do I have ability to share? Perfect. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, everyone. So today I'm here to talk about our Justice Reinvestment Program, and I have a program update in terms of just some update based on our funding that we're receiving from the Criminal Justice Commission, as well as the first reporting cycle for our grant, the formula grant and the competitive grant. So just as a reminder, for the Justice Reinvestment funding, there are 2 funding streams that we receive. One is the formula grant, which is an allocation-based grant based on our percentage of the individuals that we supervise on adult parole and probation. And then there's also a competitive grant, which we applied for and we did receive funding. So in terms of the update for our formula grant, so our formula grant was approved. Just a reminder of what our program looks like for Deschutes County. Our JRP program really focuses on downward departures. So those are individuals that are receiving probation in lieu of a prison sentence. It also focuses on our alternative incarceration program, which are AIP. Those are individuals that are releasing from prison early. And our short-term transitional leave individuals, that is also individuals that are releasing from prison early. So the downward departures focus on those individuals that would have gone to prison, but now are receiving probation in lieu of prison. Granted, that can be revoked and they can be sent back if they do not successfully complete. And then it also focuses on those individuals releasing from prison early. Those are the AIP program and the STTL program. So just our formula grant, we supervise based on risk level, and we do this through smaller caseloads to kind of account for just information that we have to provide based on our defendant assessment reports. As a reminder, for the formula grant, we work in conjunction and in partnership with the DA's office. We provide them with information through our defendant assessment reports. And this information just kind of really focuses on those downward departures. So those individuals that we're looking at before they may go to prison, and kind of providing them with information that lets them know, can this individual possibly be supervised in our community before we consider sending them to prison. So we work closely with the DA's office and provide supervision for those individuals. And then we really focus on behavior change and then resource support. Some of the major things that we pay for are transitional housing. We have a contract with the Bethlehem Inn and with Pfeiffer and Associates to provide sober housing beds and transitional housing beds. We really focus on that treatment connection and getting those individuals connected to treatment, as well as barrier reduction services, really focusing on maybe providing them some work clothes or other things to get them connected to employment and other aspects. So in total, it's a 2-year grant cycle. It actually started as of July 1, 2023. The total budget for the formula grant was $1,872,386. And it really focuses on the FTE that provide those services, as well as those contracts for housing beds through our sober housing beds and through the Bethlehem Inn. In terms of the competitive grant, so part of our competitive grant was approved. So what the grant committee, review committee, what they did is they went through different competitive grants and they pulled out specific things that they approved. So we received $514,403 for key personnel, and they really focused for our grant on the downward departure focused. So we're looking at key personnel for operation of our JRP program through those downward departures. And so some of the key aspects of that are we will be providing gender responsive services. So this is, as we know, something that we've learned through research and through other aspects is that if you work with clients who identify as female or as women in specific ways, it just really helps with their success on probation. They come into our system through different pathways than men. And so kind of really focusing our services around that. And so we'll have we've been working on with a gender responsive work group. We're providing CBT services that are gender specific, and we will eventually provide gender specific caseloads for those individuals. We've also have been working closely with the DA's office on program design and operation of our JRP program. It's been in operation since 2016, 2017. So we're really looking at, are we capturing all the individuals who may be appropriate for this program, and kind of working through that partnership in terms of identification, the assessments we provide, and recommendations on how we actually select those individuals. We've had some meetings with the DA's office, and we're just working through that. We're really taking a look at that defendant assessment report and analyzing the different pieces of it, what's being used, what's not being used, and where can we make changes to make it more user-friendly for everyone moving forward. And so kind of adding a recommendation based on what services are available, so they really understand when that information is provided to the DA and then eventually to the courts, how this individual could be successful in our JRP program. So we received approval for that. And as I mentioned, that's $514,403, and those specifically for FTE for that program. In terms of victim services, so in total, we received $244,914.81 for our victim service agencies. That's about $80,000 more than we originally anticipated. Because of our competitive award, it increased the amount of money that we had available quite substantially. And so these figures, as they're outlined there, kind of explain how each organization will be receiving funds. Once again, these funds started technically as of July 1. We actually have not yet received the funds, but as soon as we have received those funds, payments will start going out. But Saving Grace and Mary's, through their Mary's Place program, will receive roughly $64,000. CASA is going to receive roughly $44,000. Kid Center is receiving about $51,000. JBAR-J, the Anti-Trafficking Project, is receiving about $44,000. And In Our Backyard, our newest agency for victim services, will receive roughly $42,000. So in terms of reporting, so because the grant was approved, and technically funds would date back to July 1, our first reporting period has come due, and that's for Q1, which is July through September, and Q2, which is October through December. So just for our formula grant, we continue to supervise in accordance with risk and needs principles. We're utilizing our transitional housing resources, sober housing, really working on stability and treatment for those individuals, and barrier reduction to help with those individuals that we supervise. One of our major components of our JRP program is CBT, so cognitive-based therapies, which really focus on criminal thinking. And the program that we offer for that is called MRT. It's moral recognition therapy. And right now, in 2023, we had a 77% successful completion rate for those who completed our MRT program. I'm looking at recidivism. We're not seeing any major increases. You see a slight decline. Overall, Deschutes County has always been higher than state averages for recidivism, but we're not seeing any major increases, which we're happy with for that aspect of the grant. They really also look at prison utilization. And so right now, with looking at our prison utilization as a whole, we're about 45% below our baseline overall. So we're really happy with those numbers, and we will continue moving forward with our program as we have designed it at this point. In terms of the competitive grants, so we've started working on those gender responsive services that I was mentioning. We recently held a trauma-informed care training, and this was in partnership with the DA's office through their victims assistance office. We're working on the relaunch of Moving On. So we have our MRT program, as I mentioned. That's actually a program for male individuals on supervision, and Moving On is a program for females on supervision. And it's that cognitive-based therapy that really addresses criminal thinking and how individuals come into the criminal system. We're also looking at gender-specific caseloads, as I mentioned, and we're hoping for a launch date of April of 2024 for that. So we've had several meetings with the DA's office to look at our program and the defendant assessment report, and we're working with them on changes to that report just to make it more user-friendly and include a recommendations section that's based on what's available. They emphasize that likely will be just helpful for judges and defense attorneys in just kind of really providing kind of a snapshot of a case plan of what we would do with these individuals if they were provided this opportunity. We've had 61 new downward departures over the past 6 months, and 29 of those went to JRP caseloads. Some of those probably were of a crime type that didn't fall into that, so that's why you see that difference there. We had 4 revocations from the program. And when they're looking at revocations, they're really concerned about what caused that revocation. Was it for a new crime or was it for technical violations? And looking for our program, 2 of those were for new crimes, and then 2 of them were for multiple technical violations. And both of those individuals were given multiple chances with those technical violations. So we feel pretty good about that aspect of those revocations. In terms of just participants, at any given time, you have the roughly 140 to 160 participants. So 76 of those individuals are in treatment. 104 have received some type of housing assistance in the past 6 months. 100% of those have received an assessment, which is our risk and needs assessment, either the LSCMI if they're a male or the WARNA if they're female. And that just really looks at what is that individual's criminogenic risk and needs, and how do we kind of effectuate change with that individual by working on those specific needs. We've also provided 15 individuals with education and or employment assistance. And that just looks like anything from helping them get their driver's license, helping them with work clothes. Some of our individuals go to employment places that require steel-toed boots, and some of those boots are $150, $180, so working with them to provide some resources to help with that. So that just kind of provides an idea of some of the aspects of the competitive grant that we've reported. And all of this is outlined in the attachment 2 for the LPSC agenda. And I have some specific more details for that if you have specific questions about that. But just kind of gives you an overview of the reporting that we will be doing for the competitive grant for the Justice Reinvestment Program. So to finish out, first off, do I have any questions about specific items that I've covered or other things that you may have noticed in that attachment?
Thanks, Trevor. Really great information, a great overview of what is in the report. I certainly appreciate it. A lot of information for sure. Let's just take a moment to see if there are questions, follow-ups. I appreciate your continuing to remind me what the acronyms stand for.
No worries.
It's not the language I speak every day, so I really appreciate that.
No problem. And if there aren't any questions, this report does require a motion in order for us to submit it to the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. So that would be the action item that we would need for this item.
Yeah, exactly. I was just gonna pause here for a moment to see if there are any questions or comments, but I'm not seeing any. So when somebody is ready to make a motion to approve it, that's great, but I certainly don't want to rush the decision. If folks would like to ask questions or discuss any aspects of the report.
I am happy to motion the approval of the submission of the Q1 and Q2 JRP report to the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission.
Great. Thank you, Donna. I appreciate that. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chang.
Oh, Commissioner Chang, great, thank you, welcome. Great, we have a motion and a second, and trying to remember how Judge Ashby does this. I don't know if everybody gives us a thumbs up or a nod of the head, or and we'll consider it approved at that point, unless there are I see thumbs going up, heads nodding. So let that reflect our vote. I see our sheriff. Good, thank you. I see all sorts of ways to approve it. So we'll consider this approved. Thank you very much. Trevor, we always appreciate your participation, your information. And we'll move on to item number 5. So of course, this is a big topic, House Bill 4002, and was it eventually maybe -33 amendments that were adopted, I think, with it. I see heads nodding yes. I think probably, I expect almost everybody here today played some role in this process at some point. And thank you to everyone, and so many beyond within all of our organizations participated in this. And I know our district attorney did as well. We had a really great conversation about it this morning. And again, for those of you that may have missed the start of the meeting, he's not able to join us this afternoon as he's traveling today. I don't mean to speak on behalf of most everybody, but I think people are pleased with where we're at. So at this point, but work to be done and a lot going forward. So let's just open this up for impacts of the short session activity for our member agencies and systems, of comments, perspectives, thoughts going forward. And certainly anybody can just jump right in. Don't feel like you have to raise your hand. Please just jump in.
Hi, Nick. Mary Anderson from the DA's office. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. So from the Office of the District Attorney, Steve Gunnels, we are committed to basically working with the committee to participate in both a deflection and a diversion program. So really what the changes, what we expect to see at this point, there will be criminalization of user amount of hard drugs. Those will be unclassified misdemeanors. So typically we have Class A, Class B, Class C misdemeanors, and we have a small category of crimes that are unclassified. This will hopefully allow law enforcement to respond in a proactive way. They will have options including arrest or citation. And within that, we'll be building in some time for the first opportunity for people to access treatment. And through every step of the way, whether it's through deflection or diversion or probation, there is always the focus and opportunity for treatment. So really that's kind of a brief summary and just emphasizing our commitment, hopefully to seek some of those funds from CJC that will allow us to try to be successful with the deflection portion of the program. And that's all that I have.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
I see Janice, you have your hand up. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this a lot, and I think it's fair to say that most of the people on this particular Zoom are probably pleased that there will be some more firm incentives and opportunities for accountability for people who are using some of these substances. I have a little bit of sadness about the fact that this bill was originally intended to address the fact that people of color are incarcerated at much more significant rates for these kinds of offenses. And I hope as a community that we don't lose sight of that. That was the intent of the bill. And I know all sorts of things went wrong with the bill, including the rollout, the fact that it occurred side by side with a fentanyl crisis in our community, and reductions in revenue to corrections and law enforcement, none of which I think are positive things. So this bill probably rights some of that. but it doesn't write the original intent, which was to reduce the likelihood that people who are marginalized in some way end up incarcerated at higher rates. And I hope we're keeping our eyes on that ball in our community, because it happens here as well. And it's not because anyone's bad, it's because of all the things that contribute to how people of color are impacted in our community. So they are still housed at lower rates. They are still employed at lower rates. They are still sometimes experiencing increased consequences in the criminal justice system, something we see every day. And I just don't want to lose sight of what was a very noble intent of probably a badly written law. And I hope some of you are interested in continuing to partner around making sure that communities of color are not disproportionately impacted.
Thank you, Janice.
Yeah.
I'll jump in.
Thank you. I was
I-
feeling a little alone. Appreciate you.
I think, first, I think even when this came about and I had one of my first LIPSIC meetings, I was pretty vocal in saying that this measure was a complete failure from the beginning and will be a failure. So proven right, I think all of us kind of generally had the same expectations when we saw the reality of what this measure would do. Was it caused a tremendous amount of harm to our communities and to people who are in the middle of addiction crisis. It was not a good thing in any way that this thing came about. It just was not a positive or a good factor for any of our communities. I mean, I think we all knew it was bought and paid for from out-of-state money, which was a lot of the problem too, was it was an experiment for Oregon. I think this is
Okay, I'm headed out. I'll see you in the morning.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Sure. I do think that this was a first movement towards a fix. This is not the fix. I don't think so. I think this is a much like what we all saw with we assumed would be this ballot measure. It was a thing, and then there was going to be a whole lot of repair because it was just thrown out there. And similar to what we're seeing right now, there's been a lot of thought from our elected leaders, which is great, and a lot of bipartisan support for getting this moving forward. I think we all know now, though, as community leaders in the criminal justice system, in law enforcement, in treatment, and in our community, in the government, we have a lot of work to do to now figure it out and make it work. I think that's going to be the next big step is, okay, we have this change now, and how do we make it work for our community? There's definitely, I'll speak from the law enforcement side, of course, and I'll be a little biased towards law enforcement. There's definitely some good tools in it for us to help keep our community safer, and create some accountability around what's happening in our communities on our streets right now, and the massive victimization that's happening within drug abuse within the community where there's a lot of heavy drug use. But there's a lot of questions too. How is the county impacted? How's the county going to step up with, deflection options, and how is that going to work? And that's only going to be as good as what the county sets up, obviously, because this is not a state system. So there's a lot of questions. And I think that's where this group particularly has a lot of ability to lead that growth and make those fixes. Because this is going to be another 3, 4, 5 year building process, I think. I think we're not seeing the end of this. Long session or regular session is going to probably still have some tweaks and fixes, hopefully, and we'll still continue to build on what is there. But this is the start, and I think we have a long road.
Nick, I just would like to follow the chief there and just say, just so the group knows, 90% of the individuals that we have incarcerated locally are white male adults between the ages of 20 and 45. And so we may not see things that other communities see, but I'll always go back to the fact that I trust in our local law enforcement, and I absolutely trust in the DA's office as they move those crimes forward. And, probable cause arrests on individuals are because more likely than not, they committed the crime when they were arrested for the charge. And so I know there's a whole lot of other items that go on in people's personal lives, the reason behind they commit those crimes, and the way they become incarcerated. But I feel very confident in the level of law enforcement and the reasoning behind those arrests. And I think the chief hit the nail right on the head. If I could open a treatment bed facility in partnership with the chief and direct these individuals into that treatment facility while having a consequence that would make sure they went through that treatment, or they would have a criminal charge, I'd do it all day long. I don't have a treatment facility, full disclosure, for everyone, and I think that's part of the problem. But I appreciate the conversation, and I agree with the chief and Janice. As we move forward, we'll work it out together on this coordinating council. It's one of our charges. So I appreciate the discussion.
I have a little go back on that too, because the sheriff hit something there. Is when we talk about treatment, I hope that all of us on this are really will help focus towards, especially the regular session, on the need for a sobering center in Deschutes County. I think that and Tri-County, I mean, really, because it would be used by all 3 counties, that's I think one of the most important things we can focus on next is getting state money and state funded to assist us in creating that sobering center. It will be a huge piece for helping, law enforcement, helping social services, helping treatment, get people off the street when they're really in that bad case, and they don't need to be charged with a crime, but they need to go somewhere. And right now we have an emergency room, and yes, we have a stabilization center, but it's not the same. It is not for people who are coming down on meth or coming down. We need a secure, safe sobering center that's functional. I think, we're seeing Multnomah County, we're seeing Washington County. Everyone wants Washington County's building theirs, but everyone wants something like that. So the collective really influence that all of us have from our different agencies and positions, that would be really nice to see go into the regular session on how do we make that happen. And I'll stop talking.
Oh, no, please no, I don't. Yeah, thank you, Chief. I certainly appreciate your comments. And we did just begin to talk about the sobering center funding at the very, very end of the session. Too late this time, and thank you, Sheriff. Commissioner Chang, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I was hoping that someone could describe to me in sequentially and mechanically how deflection works. I mean, literally walk me through at the local level, someone being apprehended for a crime, and then kind of where that person goes, which parts of the local public safety system they interact with, and how they actually are deflected. And one of the reasons I want to understand this is because I want to understand better whether we actually have the organizational capacity in the places that we need to have the organizational capacity for deflection to actually work.
Oh, good. Thank you, Mary. I see you came off of mute, and please.
Well, I mean, I think the big question is we have to start with the funding to understand, and resource identification. But I can give a general overview of what the idea of the plan is, and I would welcome any of the law enforcement agencies, if Mike or Shane or Devin want to jump in here, please do. But really what this goes back to is a program that was somewhat similar back in the day called conditional discharge. So we would start with that law enforcement contact, and there is discretion based on the circumstances and the situation. And I'm not going to speak for the law enforcement agencies, whether that's going to be an arrest situation or a citation. The deflection is really pre-charging. So in a citation circumstance, it will be set out a period of time, and I see Steve Lopez is here too, so he can jump in anytime. But basically, we are looking at a long citation date, so it wouldn't be within the normal 30 days, probably something closer to 60 days. And then we have to work out the details of that point when the person is given information about treatment and treatment providers and information about contact with behavioral health, and these details have not been sorted. whether or not that person takes the steps at that time to address those issues. If they don't, we then make a filing decision. So the mechanics of how that information is disseminated and how the information about whether or not they have sought treatment services has not been worked out. So that long citation date or long release date provides that opportunity. If that doesn't occur pre-charging, then a charging decision is made. And we go back to square one where we're evaluating whether or not there's sufficient evidence to go forward. And if all of our, statutory and ethical and constitutional obligations are met and we file a charge, then there's an opportunity for the person to divert, which is different than deflection because the divert process, you're already in the system. And at that point, depending on how that case goes, and if the person decides to resolve the case versus filing a motion to suppress or trying the case, then they have an opportunity to be placed on what I understand to be supervised probation. So DV or Trevor, if I'm wrong there, please correct me. That supervised probation, working with a probation officer, again, with the focus of getting them into treatment. If they successfully complete at that point, similar to conditional discharge, then they would not end up with a conviction. So there's really a lot of opportunities to get to the person to the point where they would engage, hopefully. And even post conviction, if they failed to commit to that treatment program, or it wasn't an option for them at that time, so they didn't deflect, they didn't divert. Even if they are then sentenced on the charge, probation is the presumptive sentence. It's an unclassified misdemeanor, which is consistent with a Class A misdemeanor. They're going to be on supervision, and the focus of supervision is going to be treatment. And that opportunity for treatment is not redundant. There's a lot of factors I think that everyone here is likely aware of, probably more aware than I am, that may impact, when a person is ready to participate in treatment. So generally that's the idea, Commissioner Chang, but the details have yet to be sorted out specifically on the actual process. And I think historically, given this group and the community, we have collaborated with law enforcement, the jail, with parole and probation on other programs. Trevor just talked about our programs through CJC. So I'm confident it can be done. I just can't tell you exactly how, when, or how much it will cost.
Mary, thank you. It's incredibly helpful. I see that Chief Krantz put a message in our chat box here, just to follow up with a question there. If you see the question there, and then the charge is sealed or removed from their permanent criminal record in 3 years. Is that correct?
I don't know the answer to that, but I suspect that Chief Krantz, by asking that question, that is correct. And I am not Steve Gunnels, as many of you know. He has been more involved in this process than I have been, so I apologize that I can't answer that question.
Thank you. Councilor Broadman.
Thanks, Nick. I just wanted to echo Chief Krantz and the sheriff's comments. I think this is the beginning. Especially if you read the first version of this bill. I just want to give credit to this group for bringing real life experience with how that first incarnation would have worked, and getting us to a much better result. I think with all of the thoughtfulness that Janice expressed, with that underlying the entire effort to improve what was a difficult fix to something that was not working. And I'm confident that we're in a much better place than we were when that first bill was introduced. But I do think it's appropriate to look at this as sort of day one. Once the governor signs this, what's next? Let's make sure that that we continue to lead from Central Oregon, because my impression is that that's what happened here. And so credit to you all, credit to all of the governments who stepped up and leaders who stepped up to get us to a better spot. Central Oregon can continue to lead in Salem with common sense, just public safety solutions that I think help the entire state. So I'm excited for what we can do moving forward as a region. And I think it's really important that we continue to work together like we did on this bill. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Other comments, questions, perspectives?
This is a DV. I can just kind of chime in from the perspective of what that probation supervision, may look like. And interestingly, the Association of Community Corrections Directors, OACCD, so that would be all the county parole and probation agencies, don't usually take a stand on any bill. Our position, our field is generally like, you send us who you're going to send us. We will assess risk and needs. We'll do the very best we can with whoever you're sending us, kind of you meaning the DA and the judge and the police officers. So this time around with this bill, we were asked to provide a letter of support, and that association did provide a letter of support to 4002, I think, -33. And I think that in a way we felt a little bit excited at the ability, a returning of an ability to provide very person-centered supervision to those whose risk and needs really mean that they will be helped by being in our system. And I'm kind of Janice, I'm kind of thinking of your comments at the beginning. I am cognizant of that. And if anybody listened to those 4002 testimonies, there were some really powerful testimonies around, just what the different impacts are of these kinds of laws on different populations. And I feel excited that our association took a stand and said we support this bill, and we're also going to be working consistently across the state with all the different county agencies, which never happens, as you can imagine, to try to create kind of very specialized approach to individuals who are coming in with this new drug enforcement misdemeanor. Because while our staff tend to be very supportive of treatment, we also can get kind of stuck in more standard ways of, battles with individuals about compliance with conditions, right? Are you reporting in? Are you showing up? What are you supposed to do? And sometimes when that person is in a phase of relapse or use that is not conducive to going to treatment, getting an assessment, in fact, that's the last thing they want to do, we sometimes do fall back on traditional ways of trying to be incentivizing people, i.e. jail. And I think this population, the entire state, will be watching to see if our metrics and our work is better than what happened in the last few years. And I think to do that, we really do have to support our staff to be very treatment oriented, to really, really look for every single, I think the expression that's being used is off-ramps. How many off-ramps can you constantly provide? So that's going to be something we will be doing in partnership with our partners across the state who are working in probation. And I'm sure that we'll come back and bring that and work with you all in a way. And I think, you might see something different with this particular population, depending on that. But I'm really excited about that. And then maybe my last sort of plug, with the DA's office, actually, over the past year, we've been working kind of hand in glove with them, which has been so great on actually looking at equity and where do we see racial and ethnic disparities in the DA's kind of purview and in parole and probation. And we do actually see some, as Janice said, we really do. And one of those areas that we tend to see disparity is in the use of jail sanctions, how long people go to jail for, or if jail is used at all. So I do think it's something that is, our two agencies are really on top of it. I know Judge Crutchley has been running a work group for kind of public safety partners generally looking at similar issues. So I think that we also are cognizant and prepared and really excited to work together to make sure that this program doesn't have disparate outcomes for communities of color in Deschutes County, which we really do see those disparities. So I appreciate Janice lifting that up. And maybe I'm naive, but I'm thinking we can do both with this in our county, and I'm really excited. So I look forward to being a partner in how we figure out how the heck we're going to do this in our county.
Thank you very much, Devi. Janice, back to you.
No, just appreciate that. And I think it's always hard to talk about racial and ethnic disparities without everyone wondering who we're talking about. And I want to be really clear, it's not an accusation of our community. It's just a reality in our culture that there are folks who experience our communities differently for whatever reason. So I want to be really clear that I still think that happens, and it is, I'm not laying it at any doorstep at all. The other thing I would say is that the other place where people can really experience some disparities in housing, and what we know about the off-ramps that Devi is describing, is that none of them are very effective at long-term sobriety if people are not able to access low income, safe housing that isn't basically discharging someone out of treatment back to the street, which is often what we see and what we're still seeing in our community. And I know housing is a really difficult topic, but it is part of the puzzle that will solve for the addiction crisis in this country. And we just can't keep taking people in, stabilizing them in a hospital, stabilizing them in a treatment program, doing intensive follow-up work with them, and seeing them go back to a tent and imagining that they're going to stay clean. It just doesn't work that way. So I hope that will be the next round of investment. And then the only other thing I would add, just to help with expectations, is that the amount that's been identified for deflection coming through CMHPs is about 9 million. And to give you some scale, the amount that was identified for non-law enforcement response was roughly 7 million. And I think that equated to a couple 100,000 for Deschutes County in a year. So I want people to know, like, dollars did get identified, and that is a huge positive, but we are probably way far from where we would need to be for robust treatment courts and deflection programs. And again, we're going to work together. We're going to do what we can. I think we go above and beyond in this community, frankly. And if it's encouraging at all, we are bending the curve on opioid fatalities compared to the rest of the state, partly because of the good work we've done together. So I believe we will do good work on this subject, but we are just starting down the path, as everyone has said.
Thank you. Other comments or perspectives? This is really a great discussion.
I know I said I wasn't going to talk.
Oh,
But-
please, Chief.
I mean, I think the other perspective we all should probably just consider, and there's positive out of a lot of this. And what this also offers is hope at some level for parents, for families, for children who are neglected. I know we're very centric on someone that is in the middle of an addiction crisis and how to get treatment. But the fallout of that is families impacted and children impacted and neglected and taken in their DHS system. And I mean, the strain on society as a whole and crime rates. I mean, there's so much that surrounds this that I think we have a lot of hope for some positive impacts that are outside of just the potential treatment options and accountability options for someone in the middle of crisis. So I think that's, as law enforcement, we always look at that because we see that every day, right? And I know a lot of you all do as well in your individual roles, is that impact. I can't tell you how many times I've had family members beg us to arrest their usually children because they wanted to force them through jail to get into treatment. And that was a valid option, is there was some consequence to it. In these last couple of years, we haven't had that. And I think that this brings a little bit of that hope back. And if you've had members of your family, particularly in opioid addiction, right? Meth at some level too, but particularly in opioid addiction, you know that is one of the things that you wish most, is that they get arrested for two reasons. Because you want them safe at night and you want to know where they're at for once, and that you want to force some sort of like accountability around treatment. Like if only they could be pushed through treatment and have some coercion to get there rather than just do whatever they want. So there's a lot of impacts kind of surrounding this that are positive, and that I think will will be beneficial as well.
I just want to echo that. You are right, and we are serving those folks too. Those kids, those family members, we get those calls every day. It is real, and I do think family members have hoped that jail was a way that people would do better. So we see that side of it as well.
Thank you both. Gil, I see you have your hand raised, please.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Excuse me. Yeah, Chief Krantz, appreciate your comments. And as I sat and listened to all of this, was just thinking about the perspective from where we sit at the Kids Center. Definitely, I think there's some optimism amongst our team, just knowing that there are maybe some tools out there that we haven't had, because we were seeing, and we have been seeing many cases that come through where there are substance abuse issues that are right at the heart of what caused that case to come to our center in the first place, and talking to law enforcement who felt essentially that they didn't really have much that they could really do to address that particular piece of it. And so knowing that it really fed deeply into why a kid might have been, abused or neglected, but just feeling a little bit powerless to address that portion of it. It's nice to know that that's going to maybe shift a little. So I think from the provider standpoint, at least in our organization, I think we feel like this offers some positive steps, and really it's great to hear this group also just thoughtfully consider the steps that are ahead of all of us, because it doesn't sound like it's going to be a simple road, and there's lots of different considerations. And I'll add one more thought too, is just that our team is also, at the same time, we know what our jobs are, and we want to keep kids safe, and we want to contribute to justice, but we also are really sensitive about disparities and those rates, that who's coming through and why. And so it's really tough, I think, on the provider side to sort of balance those kinds of things. Just a comment. I think that's always something that there's sort of two sides to this work sometimes, and it can be difficult. But just appreciate being able to be part of this dialogue and hearing where everyone's at. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gil, for contributing. Anyone else want to share any perspectives, thoughts, follow-up questions or comments? This is such a great discussion.
Can I share one more? Sorry. Gil really caught me with the two sides, and I think there's probably multiple sides. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot, because this is an election year and there are a bunch of hot topics that people tend to land in a side. And what I appreciate about being in government and in service is that that's not our language, and that we really are about problem solving. And so my commitment to this group is, even if we may have different perspectives on some of this work, that the problem to be solved is how to get folks connected to resources and to treatment, and to reduce the harms to the community. And I would say every single person on this Zoom is invested in that. And that's not even a sided issue. That's like, we all think that's a good idea, and we want to do that work together. And we'll be at the table, really, as always, trying to help and be a good partner and get people connected where we can.
Thank you, Janice.
Yeah.
It's so great we're having this discussion before the bill's even signed.
Right.
Everybody's contributing. It's so clear about the dedication and the commitment and the realization that it takes all of us, all of our different agencies and providers and government, and everybody, and like you said, Janice, it's not just two sides, there's multiple sides and perspectives, and everybody has such an important role. And I think a few people use the word hope for a better system and process going forward. And that's exactly what I heard from our district attorney this morning, and in a great meeting with him. And we're at the beginning. Before we conclude it, I just want to make sure there's time for any other comments or perspectives. It's just such an important topic. Do I see speaking without haven't unmute? Just unmute yourself there, please. Oh, there's the camera, and then we'll get the unmute one more comment at least here. I see you looking for the unmute button. I want to give you the time. Good. There you are. Great. I can't hear you
Oh,
though.
no, we still can't hear.
We can't hear you.
You hear me now?
Yes, great. I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I apologize for my computer here. I was just gonna echo the word of the chief here. I work with the state agency, as some of you may know, Oregon Youth Authority, and it's really heartbreaking to see that families are coming to us and they want the youth, the kids, to be arrested in order for them to actually get into treatment. So, I mean, this discussion is, and as a state agency, we can't do anything. It's like, no, by law, we can't have the law enforcement really arrest somebody in order for them to get into treatment. So this discussion, for me, I think it's really real. And I think we are after something that really probably will help this community, specifically here in the Shoots. I just thought I should just comment and just echo the word of everyone who's been participating here, especially the law enforcement. I mean, this is real. It's out there, and I see it every day. We can't do anything with the youth that are coming to us. If families are really crying to us, like, "Hey, you need to help my kid, and he has to go to jail," like, we can't do that. On the other hand, I don't know if we have any representation from DHS. That will be very crucial for this. This kind of meeting to have those kind of representation, to see what they have, because we're talking about substance abuse, but we have some mental health issues that are actually connected with substance abuse. And we are unable sometimes to address those issues because we're like, where's DHS? Like, no, we can't handle this. These kids are coming to you, like, well, we're not mental health, but they are concurrent. So we can't differentiate between the two of them. I thought I should bring that to you guys to see if there's at least any way we can bring some representation from DHS. Sometimes they may have some ideas for us. Thank you.
Great idea.
Yeah,
Thank you.
totally, Joseph. That's a wonderful idea. And just you speaking made me think I was remiss to say that, I mean, the conversation about young people and juveniles with 4002 was completely absent. I mean, the bill
Yeah.
is 100% focused on criminal justice and adults. I think we gotta, I don't think it's in 4002, maybe on the floor when it was being discussed. I believe Rep. Kropp made a statement about he recognized that this bill didn't have anything in it about juveniles. And I believe there's gonna be a task force, another task force, Janice, formed to kind of discuss what are the applications of the principles of 4002 to young people. But it really was quite remiss in that. And there are some key differences, as Joseph was kind of just talking about. I mean, we're talking about minors, so they have families with much more legal control, theoretically or potentially, than we're talking about with adults. It's just a whole different, you really are working with the entire family, legally speaking, not even just naturally, and because that's who the the adults have families too, of course. But that'll be something interesting, I think, for this group to watch, because even though that's not true prevention, it's a prevention from the point of view of the adult system. Then of course, we're not even talking about prevention, true universal prevention that, stops even young people from being involved. So thank you, Joseph, for bringing that up. And I will make a note. I often work with Judge and Nick on putting together agendas for LIPSIC. So we can make a note to maybe have a conversation with DHS as well sometime in the next year.
Well, and there was no money identified at all for prevention, none, for youth prevention. And that was probably just a practical reality of what was available and what could be pursued in a short session. But our prevention team does a ton of in-reach into schools and tries to provide information about, in particular right now, the risk of fentanyl being cut into other substances and how, sort of experimental use is really high risk for young people right now, incredibly high risk and dangerous. no money for that whatsoever. Thankfully, we can apply some of the opioid dollars to that work, but that was a missed opportunity, I think, and one that needs to be pursued going forward. So. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just, going back to Dee Vee's comment, working on agendas going forward, I expect this will be this will be a standing topic going forward for a long time ahead. It's just a matter of what aspect are we gonna tackle at which meeting, and inviting DHS, and then other implementation measures and coordination. There's a lot to work through, and this is just the beginning. So any final comments or questions on this topic? I'm not seeing any. Thank you, everyone, for such a great, robust discussion on such an important issue. I genuinely appreciate it, and I expect Judge Ashby and District Attorney Gunnels will want to come back and spend some time and listen to this part of our meeting, given the importance of it and going forward. So thank you, everyone, for participating in that discussion. We're on our final agenda topic at number 6, agency updates and other business. And so I'll open it up for updates, and some of you may wish to either even report on any other related legislation that's been approved to support your operations program services that are directly related to our work here. For example, the $1.5 million for the stabilization center, which is really remarkable. And thanks to Janice and your team for your support, and the board supported, and a lot of work. And that's just one. There's a lot of other updates and really other good news coming out of the legislature to support many of the programs, issues, housing going forward. I see Commissioner Chang. Let me turn it over to
Thanks, Nick. I just wanted to put it on people's radar screens if they are not tracking this issue, that the County Community Justice Department is implementing a justice-involved individuals transitional housing project in the city of Bend on Wilson Avenue right now. And I think the principle behind this is something that a lot of folks in in LIPSIC, can probably easily grasp. We were having people who were being released from prison or jail who were struggling to find housing upon release, and going into parole. And community justice suggested, if we could provide a more predictable, secure transitional housing for folks, it would be a great benefit in terms of both keeping track of people who are supposed to be under supervision, and also just giving those people the best chance possible of transitioning out of prison or jail. There are, that project has begun at this point. There are at least 2 individuals, and Dee Vee will have much more details than I would. There are at least 2 individuals who are, in that transitional home right now. But we are experiencing, we have received a tremendous amount of concern and pushback from individuals in that neighborhood, to the point where I'm puzzled by this, but we're at a point where I think there are members of the Board of Commissioners who are still considering the idea of closing up shop, shutting down this project and moving it somewhere else, or just shutting it down, period. I wanted to share that with members of the LIPSIC, and I wanted to, ask that if anyone has any thoughts, opinions on this topic, that they share those with the Board of Commissioners. And if you are supportive of the project, I would also really appreciate hearing that as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other updates or other business for us with this last agenda item?
Just have, I guess, other business, just if anyone hears, about a new, item that's out. I have our fire department actually doing some research today, as well as our legal on, the new substance called Opvi. It's, basically a new, basically Narcan 2.0. It's to counteract synthetic opioids like fentanyl. And it's used in one municipality right now in Michigan, and they're having really good results. So we're just doing some research on that to see what that might be like. It's an FDA approved, so it's not got a bunch of hurdles around it. It's really, we're looking at it for, would this be something that we could use here? Our officers go to a lot of overdose calls frequently. We're arriving before fire and we're administering several doses of Narcan. And this is a new medication that really is longer lasting, a little more potent for that synthetic. So you don't have to do multiple doses. And it's more responsive to really fentanyl is what we're talking about. So that's something we're looking at.
How's it spelled?
OPVEE, Opvi.
Okay, I'm gonna reach out to our team and see what they know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other updates? Any other business before we adjourn? I'm not seeing any. I just want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon for a great discussion, great meeting, and we'll look forward to seeing you next month. Great. Thanks, everyone.